I know exactly what you're thinking right now.
That's the damn minigun!
Hey everyone, this is John from EastCoastArmory.com, and I'm here today with these two 1/6 scale pedestal mounted MGs. Both of these units here are actually built for commission and belong to a private collector. As I often mention in these videos, I frequently take on commission build projects from models ranging between 1/35 scale and 1/6 scale. For availability and pricing information, that would be best by contacting me through the email address listed below, which is info@eastcoastarmory.com. Both of these two models over here are built utilizing 1/6 scale cast resin and 3D printed components from eastcoastarmory.com. The link can be found listed below, and the direct link can also be found in the video description. In this video, I'm going to be showing what the models look like at the project start, as well as what they look like now in their completed format in greater depth. Many of the components have several interesting features and functionality aspects to them, and this too we're going to be going over as the video goes on. So with all that in mind, just sit back and relax, because there's going to be a bit of info coming right at you. And here we have the components at the start of the project. On the table here, we have a mix of older EastCoastArmory.com cast resin items, as well as also the newer generation ECA 3D printed items. Starting from left and working our way right, we have not one but two of the ECA cast resin M25 pedestal bases. We have here a ECA 3D printed US Navy Mark 18 pattern of cradle mount, and we also have the ECA Dragon conversion for the post-war flash suppressor variant of the Browning M1919A4. All the components that you see on the table have been mentioned in previous new product announcement videos, so we're going to go a little bit light on that. Also, at this point here, you'll notice that the parts are a little bit further into their production and are not, like, say, the way you see it when you would unbox the items when ordered from ECA. As for how this project started, well, this was basically just a walk-in, as I like to call them. The customer went ahead and sent me an email. He was looking for a cradle mount as well as a pedestal base for a MG that he had. As it turns out, he was wondering if he could mount an M134 minigun to this type of setup, and I notified him that no, that's not possible, because it's just the way the designs are. These things are purely meant for Browning MGs. And after we did a little bit of talking, he came to the interest of having a 1919 A4 with this type of pattern of shroud mounted onto a Mark 18 cradle, mounted on the M25 pedestal base, as well as another M25 pedestal base for mounting of his 21st Century Toys M134 minigun. As I mentioned in these videos, what makes these MG sets pretty fun and cool is that you could cobble them together in a multitude of different ways and come up with something that's pretty neat. This isn't really something that's going to be historically accurate per se, it's just more or less a fun accessory that the fellow wants to have displayed with his action figures. With the M25 pedestal base, as I mentioned in the other videos, even though this is an older cast resin item, they are still capable of mounting on any of the ECA 3D printed cradle mounts. The piece comes pre-drilled out. However, the bottom portion here is something that does need to be squared off by the customer. This is done on a belt sander. You literally just sand down the pouring base until it's nice and flat and you're good to go. The holes are also drilled out at that point as well. These two examples over here are a little bit further along because I went ahead and just polished down the seam line that would have been found in this section over here just with the way these things are casted. And just doing a little bit of light polish work. This is just done with some fine sandpaper, and I just go over the surfaces until they're blended away nice and smooth. Even though one unit will be mounting the 21st Century Toys M134 minigun, it still has the same drilled in socket portion as the other variant. However, to mount the 21st Century Toys unit, I am going to have to make an adapter piece because the 21st Century unit was designed to mount onto a different type of mount compared to the ECA one. That's something I'm going ahead and turn on the lathe, but I'll be mentioning that in a little bit more depth as the video goes on. Also at this point over here, we get to see the two pre-assembled T-handles. These, by the way, come in this format when you purchase the ECA pieces, and what you see here is literally what you get. Things get into focus. And let's just say I've been making these things for quite some time now. Admittedly, I'm making them a little bit less compared to in the past because now the older sets were phase-out 3D printed ones and they're integrally printed on, but let's just say I still know how to crank these things out if need be. Moving from the pedestal bases takes us to the cradle mount. Here you can see the ECA US Navy shielded Mark 18 cradle mount. As I mentioned in the other video, this is a dual-purpose mount. It could mount either a Browning M2 or a Browning 1919. This unit here has already been pre-assembled, as you can see, and if you want to know more about this, again, I recommend checking out the other video, which the link can be found in the video description. In a nutshell, this component here is just a slightly modified version of the D945 cradle mount, which was the Army designation for it, and it's literally the same exact component, just sans the mount here for the large shield that we have here in the front. The other big difference is with the addition of the data plates that we have here on either side. This is something that we see on the Navy pattern of units. However, the detailing, all that, it's all exactly the same. And on that note, this takes us to the ammo can holder. This is the same unit that has been mentioned ad nauseum in many, many videos found on this channel with the same type of setup. And this unit here is, again, a 3D printed component, and it is fully functional. The arm over here will pop around this area over here, and the point of the arm is to add as a tensioner for the belt. We do have the springs already pre-made. I did that off camera, and this thing is going to go through its course of production momentarily. Just like with the cradle, this is a dual mounting type system where you can either mount on a 50 cal ammo can or a thinner 30 cal ammo can due to the geometry and the features found here on the bottom portion of the tray. Again, more information about this is thoroughly discussed in those other previous videos. And we'll see what this looks like again as the video goes on in its assembled format. The very last thing to mention is the Browning M1919A4, and here we can have the unit now fully assembled and ready for painting. This is equipped with the ECA conversion set, which gives you the replacement barrel section for the Dragon kit, and also gives you the feed palm mechanism that we have here. In addition to these two details, it also gives you the safety bar. The unit itself was also modified from the original Dragon variant by having more detailing added to the rear end plate over here, with the addition of the reinforcement type straps, the mainspring stud. I've scratch built a new trigger out of a piece of wire. Add a little lock pin over here for the feed palm mechanism found on the inner top cover. These sights are drilled and pinned in place with metal sewing pins, so they're much more robust compared to the original kit variant. Also, on the bottom portion here, I added the small fastener found in this area over here. I believe this mounts on the locking block for the bulk carrier group. And there's this other little notch over here that again was absent on the original Dragon tooling. As you can see, this unit here is fully assembled. At this point here, it's ready to slide off into prime and paint. Same is also true for the cradle and also the pedestal bases, more or less. The only thing that's really left to assemble is the tray holder, and that's something I'm going to promptly take care of off camera. And jumping forward a little bit further takes us to the point we have here where everything now has been assembled and are actually ready to slide off into paint. What has changed since the previous scene? Well, we can see that the ammo can holder has been completed. Spring mechanisms are all there just like they are on the other units. What also has been assembled at this point are the retention chains. This is what they look like just before they slide off into paint. Note we have the pins themselves along with the little T-handle. The T-handles, by the way, are pre-bent and shaped with each of the ECA cradle sets, so that's something that you do get. And you also get the pins that are pre-drilled out, but you do have to cut them depending on the length that you need them for. What I mean by that is that on the sets, they have 4 pins total. They have a pin that's used to hold the receiver in place, and they have a travel lock pin. The pins that are used to hold the receiver in place are a bit shorter compared to the travel lock pins. And as for knowing exactly the length, well, this is just done by just test fitting it in place and see if the pin exerts too much on the opposite side or if it bottoms out before the piece is permanently, or I should say fully installed. The other thing that has been done at this time are the locking handles that we have right here found on the pedestal base themselves. Of course, this was done on both of the units. As for the 1919 over here, this is just temporarily held in place with these 2 rib nails. These are just used for testing. When it comes time for actual mounting, the chain retention pins are going to be used in their place. For the cradle, like I mentioned before in the other video, the shield is permanently attached to the unit at this time. It just makes painting a little bit easier in that regard. And from here, I'm just going to go ahead and suspend these components here on some wire, and then I can start with the painting process, which will first involve a coat of primer, being flat black, and then from there I can apply the other colors to the cradle and the pedestal base that the customer requested. And here's the model now fully completed. Before we go any further, let's go ahead and take a quick walk around this unit. With the camera brought in closer, you get to really appreciate the paint work and the weathering work done on all of the components. Starting with the 1919, you can see the paint and weathering work is done in my usual format, where the entire model is first spray painted with El Cheapo flat black spray paint, and then to get the look of the parkerization, I actually give it a diluted wash of Tamiya NATO black, of course done via the airbrush. After the airbrush wash is thoroughly dry, it's then time to add the distressed edge look, and that's just done with some dry brushing. The dry brushing is added to all the surfaces, and it gives you the nice reliefed edge look like you see here. Of course, it's not just done on the exterior portions, but it's also done on the interior components as well, found here on the bulk carrier, as well as also on the cams that we have right there on the top cover. When you're painting one of these, you want to make sure that the safety bar, you paint it in both the top and down position. It's very easy to paint this and forget about the functionality of that part. And next thing you know, you flip it up and you can have either bare exposed material underneath, or you're not going to have the wash underneath where the unit got its parkerization look. So that's also something to keep in mind when you're working on one of these type of units. On the flash suppressor section, I added a little bit of powder fouling right over there, done with the airbrush, Tamiya flat black. A few poofs later, and you're good to go. It gives you a little bit of contrast right over there. And again, it's just a nice way to add a little bit of extra realism to your build, specifically if this thing is rendered where it just zipped through a belt. Yeah, you're going to get powder fouling built up in these areas pretty quickly. Moving on to the actual cradle itself, you can see what it looks like in its fully assembled format. Just like with the US Navy versions that I mentioned in the other video, I went ahead and painted the data plates that we had integrally printed on. It's a nice way to get a bit of extra color pop to the piece, and again, just a little bit of extra detailing squeezed out. The only thing you have to do is when you're painting this with a very precision paintbrush, you want to first paint the unit flat black. Then once the black is dry with some gold leaf paint, I carefully go in here and I paint the appropriate sections, giving you for the end result that you see here. This is done after the other paint and weathering because the gold paint is an enamel base, and with the Tamiya panel line accent being added to all the other surfaces, that's best done after the panel line accent is done, because with this being enamel, the Tamiya panel line accent will just get runny from that, and next thing you know, you have runny gold paint all over the place, and it's going to be quite a mess. So like with many things involving model making, you want to paint and do everything in a layer type format. And once you get the orientation lined up, you're going to have some excellent results. Also on this side over here, you get to see the chain work all in its completed format. This pin over here and this pin over here, of course, keep the receiver in place. And this long pin over here is the travel lock. Unfortunately, it's a bit tangled up. Let's see if I can get it. Oh, there we go. Okay, and the way this works is we have these two holes here and here. And if you want to lock the thing in place, you simply just line it up, slide the pin through, And now you can see the unit is locked and it will not pivot anymore at that point. Same is also true for the other way. Open this thing up skyward, and then the pin just locks in right here, and now the unit is permanently locked in the upright position that you see presently. When not in use, the lock pin over here conveniently gets stowed away in a little holster that's built into the side of the cradle, and it keeps it nice and tucked away where it can't get it hang up or snagged up on the other portions of the chainwork, specifically when the thing is being actuated like I'm doing right now. The other pin that we have here is another travel lock. Unfortunately, that is for a different type of cradle, or I should say a different type of pedestal base compared to the one that we have here. So this one here just dangles loosely and aimlessly in this location. But either way, it gives it some pretty cool detailing nonetheless. Of course, on the opposite side, we have the can holder. The can is not included with this set over here, but like I always mention in these videos, the unit is compatible with 1/6 scale 30 cal ammo cans, specifically the ones that are being able to open, like say the ones from Dragon or the metal ones from DID, as I've shown in other videos on this channel. Basically, just open this guy up, put the can in, drop this fella in place, and you're going to be good to go at that point. And that's all there really is to the MG and the cradle mount. This takes to the pedestal base. Nothing really much going on here. What we saw earlier was basically what the unit looks like completed, but here you can see what it looks like just painted and weathered. For the paintwork, I painted it exactly to the customer specifications. He requested to have the model painted with the same color and weathering techniques that were shown on the Israeli MG mounts that I posted a little while ago. He saw those models, he saw the video, liked the way they look, and just wanted his rendition here to be painted in the exact same format, which of course I obliged. The color itself is my Israeli sand color that I cobbled together for the Tehran 5 that I did in 1/16 scale and also 135. And then it received the same type of washes and filters to lighten it up and change the color slightly to the way we see it here. Of course, the weathering techniques are utilizing airbrushing as well as the panel line accent and dry brushing, leading for the complete look that you see in front of you. After the paint and weathering work was done, the entire unit was actually coated with the VMS matte varnish in order to get the final look that you see here. Even though this model does not have any decals on it, I just like the final look that the VMS matte varnish gives to the models. It just gives them that final polished look, and it's one that really does look good when you see them in person. Something else to mention is actually the bottom portion here. So even though the unit's always going to be plugged in, I went ahead and still painted the cradle appropriately, where the bottom socket section is painted in silver. It's just standard silver paint, painted on with the brush, and that's really all you need to do. But as you can see, it has a really cool look to it, and it gives it, again, that final complete look that one would expect for something like this. On a similar note, on the cradle, or I should say on the pedestal base itself, the top portion here and the inner portion were also painted in silver, again for the exact same reason. This guy here just drops right in place. And however, as I mentioned before in the beginning of the video and as the video went on, the 1919 aspect is just half of the equation. The customer ordered two things from me. He wanted the 1919 and he wanted another pedestal base here to mount a different type of armament. And what is that type of armament? Well, it's none other than a 21st Century Toys M134 minigun. This here is a very cool piece, and it is a standalone model that was released by 21st Century Toys back in the earlier mid-2000s. I actually have a standalone video where I give this thing a thorough in-box review. I recommend checking that out because it's a good way to be well versed on what this model gives you, and it does give you a lot of cool stuff. However, one of the weaker aspects of the piece is the pedestal's height. Also, the pedestal design itself is a bit science fiction. If I go ahead and put the pedestal down over here, you could see that it's kind of a short. Literally, it is a shorty mount. To the point where the individual who hired me to do this wanted to see if I could go ahead and mount this onto a standard pedestal base, because it just makes display for his figures just a bit easier. Originally, he actually wanted to know if you could mount the M134 to this type of setup over here with the shield and the cradle and everything, to which I replied, no. These mounts here are purely just for the Browning 1919 or the M2, and for an M134 minigun, that's just not the case. You're sticking literally a square peg in a round hole here. But I said, you know what? I could go ahead and come up with an adapter piece to mount him to an ECA pedestal base, so that's exactly what I did. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this fellow off here. The 21st century piece, the yoke itself, is a decent piece. It fits extremely well in their pedestal base. This thing ain't going to fall off at all. But you can see that the piece is specifically designed for that unit. And if I try to put onto the ECA mount, it's just not going to fit. And that is where this comes in handy. This here is a custom tuned, or I should say a custom turned resin adapter, where you stick it onto the bottom here of the 21st Century Toys MG, and now you have a universal mount that connects to all of the ECA pedestal bases, this one included. Now right now, keep in mind it's a little loose because this is intended for the individual to glue it together, so it's one solid piece. Obviously this is mine, this one's staying in my own personal collection. He has one of these where he lives, and he's just going to go ahead and finish it off when he gets it. But you should be able to still get the idea. With this over here, this guy slides in place. And there you go. Once it's in place, you can see how the minigun looks while mounted to the standard pedestal base. Remember, on the real unit, it actually had that bottom socket section integrally built into the yoke, and you could mount the M134 to any USGI pedestal base and or pintle mount. So theoretically, yeah, you could even throw this on top of a Sherman and call it a day. But for this one over here, you have to have that adapter piece in order to mount the 21st century piece to the ECA mount. By the way, after I went ahead and designed this piece here, and I saw what the 21st century component gives you, i.e. with the little ridiculous tiny short cradle mount or pedestal base, I went ahead and took measurements off of this one over here, and I'm actually going to release them on the ECA catalog as a 3D printed component. So if you have a 21st century and are looking to do something similar to this, well, there's no scratch building required for you. The piece is a just drop-in install. And again, it's listed on the ECA catalog page, and the links, of course, can be found in the video description listed below. However, having the two side by side does look pretty cool. And I'm pretty sure these are going to be the highlights of the collector's collection, specifically in terms of pedestal-based small arms. And at the end of the day, this was a quick and fun little side project. Working on these two units over here was very enjoyable, and it's a great experience when gathering all the parts and basically mix and matching things to go ahead and come up with the little unit that we have here. Part of the charm and the enjoyment on working on these units over here is just how interchangeable everything is, be it from the different type of pedestal bases to the different type of cradles to even the different type of armaments. And even within that, there are different options available to customize it even further. We could either roll with an M2HB or 1919 in this case, but even with the 1919, there's the conical version like this one here, the standard version, the Israeli version, the Navy version, and as for M2s, we have the standard M2HB, we have the version with the slotted shroud, the symmetrical hold shroud, the flash suppressor, the AN M250, and even the water-cooled M2, just to name a few, and there's plenty more on the drawing board, believe that. There's, again, it's just really, really fun to just wing, mix and match, and essentially Lego your way to something that's pretty unique. On the other one, we have the now option to mount a minigun to any of the pedestal bases that are found on the ECA catalog, which there are quite a few of. But again, all this is left up to the discretion of the builder and really to their own personal taste. As I often mention in these videos, these components here are a great way to enhance and to polish up your build into something that really is up to the next level. If you're doing a vehicle, of course, and you're trying to say do something that's a little bit more historically accurate, well, obviously you can fine-tune the setup that really works best for your needs. Or on the flip side, you're doing something a little bit more fun and just creative, well, that too can also be benefited with the units that we have at your disposal. Again, this all boils down to what your personal tastes are and what you're looking to do with it. And like with this collector over here, he's not even mounting these onto a vehicle. He's just going to have them displayed in his action figure setup in a fortification type of a lineup, and you know what? All the power to him. It's definitely going to be looking really, really cool once he has these on display with his figures. And with that, that wraps up this model showcase video for these two 1/6 scale pedestal-based mounted MGs. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to this channel, where it's a great way to keep up to date on new posted content, be it 1/6 scale MG mounts like this set over here, or the other usual type of content being small scale model showcase videos and larger scale project update videos that frequently get posted. Another way to keep in loop of new posted content is by liking us on Facebook, where I have more photographs of these two units, as well as the other smaller and larger scale builds that have been seen on the channel in the past. Furthermore, don't forget to swing by EastCoastArmory.com for more 1/6 and 1/16 scale builds and detail components. Thanks again. I'll be seeing you all again on the next one. Till then.